What's up, you guys? Chet Guthrie, the Dream Poet here, coming to you all from my wonderful home state of Tennessee, more specifically Chattanooga. And today, you guys, I am in front of the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Yes, the Chattanooga Choo Choo is a perfect example of what the railroads were like in the 19th century. A time when the only thing you had was horse, foot, and the steam-breathing giants, the locomotives. Now, why we are here today, you guys, is we are going to be talking about one of the most famous locomotives in the entire United States, as well as the Civil War. But first off, let's go inside. I want to show you what this terminal looks like. So without further ado, anchor down. Alrighty, you guys, let's go inside. And I think you all will be thoroughly amazed at how beautiful this is. We picked the perfect time as well. It's around Christmas time. But check out the rotunda. And you even have some of the old terminal signs. You see, you guys, during the Civil War, even at the beginning in 1861, the South, Chattanooga, Atlanta, they were very important in the war effort because they were railroad hubs. Railroad hubs that came and intersected from all around the North and all around the South. You can imagine why the Union wanted to capture these parts in the South. If you could capture the railroads, you could capture Atlanta. Atlanta was considered to be the jewel of the South during that time. Now in 1863, General Sherman and his men, they will come through and they will destroy Atlanta. Why we are here, again I say, is to talk about the General and why we are starting out here at the Chattanooga Choo Choo. This starts in the 1930s. You see, for some time, the state of Georgia had expressed interest in getting the General back. You see, the General was secured in Ringgold, Georgia. You see, James J. Andrews and his men, known as Andrews Raiders, they were coming through Ringgold. A valve on the General exploded, and that sent them abandoning the General and heading for the hills, the mountains. For quite some time, the General will be on display at the Chattanooga Central Railroad. It was a major railroad hub here in Chattanooga. Sadly, it no longer exists. So I thought the Chattanooga Choo Choo would be a perfect example of what these terminals, these railroad hubs, these stations look like. Now in the 1960s, there will be a major court battle to get the General back into Georgia. And Chattanooga and Georgia, they will be fighting for the General for a few years until the state of Georgia will win this custody battle. And where they return the General, you must be wondering. It will be returned to where it was hijacked, in Big Shanty, Georgia, present day Kennesaw. So today, you guys, we are going to vlog these locations. Today, we are going to go to the cemetery, the graves of Andrews Raiders. We are going to the monument where the General was left on the tracks in Ringgold Gap, Georgia. And then we are going to see the engine itself at the Kennesaw Civil War Museum and Railroad Museum. So without further ado, you guys, let's get this vlog started. I am super excited. Anchor down. Alrighty, you guys, we are here at the Chattanooga National Cemetery. Here at the Chattanooga National Cemetery, there are 6. I would raise my thumb, but I'm holding the GoPro at the moment. But there were 6 Union soldiers that are buried here from Andrews Raiders. Now, one of the things that I wanted to add while we were at the Chattanooga Choo Choo is that Chattanooga was very important in the war effort because Chattanooga was a natural fortress. You see, Chattanooga, Tennessee is surrounded by the Tennessee River. It's surrounded by mountains. It was almost impervious. So the Union saw it best that in order to take Chattanooga, they must sever ties along the railroad lines going from Atlanta to Chattanooga. And how this was done is the Union Army granted the permission to this one civilian federal spy. And his name was James J. Andrews. Now, James J. Andrews, he acquired 21 Union soldiers. One of them was a civilian. And James J. Andrews, he and these brave men, they would start this hijacking in Marietta, Georgia. This hijacking was supposed to take place on April 10th, 1862. But due to the poor weather in the area, a lot of rain, a lot of cold, these gentlemen did not want to get out in that. They pushed it by a day. And on April 12th, 1862, these men hijacked the General. By the way, this big giant monument, this was donated from the state of Ohio in 1890 to commemorate these brave men who did something totally crazy. John M. Scott, who also happened to be a Medal of Honor recipient for this brave act. P.G. Shadrach, he was a colonel, 2nd Regiment from the state of Ohio. William Campbell from the 2nd Ohio Infantry. Marion A. Ross, also from the 2nd Ohio Infantry, and he was a Medal of Honor recipient for this brave act. Then we had George D. Wilson, also from the 2nd Registry of Ohio Infantry. Then we had Samuel Robertson, again, a Medal of Honor recipient for this brave yet crazy stunt that was pulled during the Civil War. Then we had Samuel Slavins, again, a Medal of Honor recipient. And it looks like somebody has laid roses, no, not roses, flowers at his feet. And it would not have been a great locomotive chase without James J. Andrews. As you can see, it says civilian. Yes, because of this man, we had the great locomotive chase of 1862. You see, all 6 of these men were hung here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, not far from where the General was abandoned in Ringgold, Georgia. And the others, they managed to escape to safety up north. Yes, may we respect these men for this brave act. But you guys, we are now going to the monument site of where the General was captured after this chase, and that is on a little road in Ringgold, Georgia. Out on the outskirts of Ringgold, Georgia, in the fields, this is the monument. This is the monument of where the General was abandoned. You see, James J. Andrews and his 20 soldiers who volunteered for this act, due to low fuel, low coal, low water, and for the fact that one of the valves blew on the General. This is where they abandoned the General all those many years ago. Of course, back then, this was all countryside, and there was nothing out here. They were not able to completely do what they were planning. You see, James J. Andrews and his raiders, they wanted to burn the locomotive bridges in this area along a 83-mile span connecting Atlanta and Chattanooga. However, in that 83 miles, the damage they still did was extensive. You see, these men, they still managed to tear apart a few locomotive tracks. William Crutchfield, the engineer of the General, he managed to secure one locomotive, which took him to another. And because the tracks were so badly damaged, he had to switch to another steam locomotive, which was known as the Texas. And the Texas and the General, this was the locomotive chase that is so well known throughout Civil War history. However, people probably think that these locomotives must have been going like 50, 60 miles an hour. In fact, they were only going 15 miles an hour. In fact, if you were a soldier or a farmer back then and you knew how to run, you could probably just as easily catch up to the General and get on it. You see, this is how William Fuller was able to stay so close to his locomotive. And honestly, James J. Andrews, he still had to adhere to a lot of the locomotive passages in this area because it was a single lane of locomotive traffic. But now that we have seen the location of where the General was captured, we are now going to make the trip to see the General in its resting place. And it is in a museum in Kennesaw, Georgia. So, friends, let's make the journey. All right, now, after about an hour and a half drive, we have finally made it to the museum. I've been looking forward to this moment since I was about 6 years old, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very glad that today is the day that, personally, I will get to physically see the General. So let's head inside, shall we? Okay, now. This railroad museum has a lot more to it than I thought it did. Looks like that tells a little bit about guarding the rails during the Civil War, because it was very important. You controlled the railroads back during the Civil War, you could control the country. I heard this too, you guys, there is a boxcar here as well. And apparently during World War II, or I should say after World War II, they donated, well, France donated a boxcar to the United States as a way of saying thank you. So we might check that out as well. And who knows, maybe I should just do an entire vlog on this as well, because there's just so much here. Okay, this museum even gets more awesome. If you all did not know what that is, right behind the fence, the gating, that is a Sherman necktie. Cool, they have one. But anyway, what a Sherman necktie was, is when General Sherman made his campaign in 1864, he and his men, they would tear up the railroad tracks, but then they would take big giant piles of railroad rails, and they would melt them, turn them around, do what they could, making them practically useless. And they have one. It looks like here they have a little more about steam powered or logging locomotives, especially where I'm from in the Appalachian region. They managed to like cut up like all the logs up in early 1910s, thus deforesting all of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. If anyone didn't know, looks like they've got themselves a lot of railroad parts as well. Maybe this is where they do their refurbs and everything. I'm not sure if it's an active refurbishment museum. Possibly. So this is where the Mercy Gratitude Boxcar is. And here it is. The first major boxcar that we will be seeing. Now, as I was saying back there, after World War II had ended, this was a gift from France. And for a boxcar, it is fairly large. Like I'm right here, that's right there. Not exactly for what we came for, but that's pretty cool. And out here, it does look like they have a few more locomotives. I think it's kind of funny. You've got Split and Jellicoe Coal Company. Jellicoe is only like an hour and a half away from Cleveland. I find that very, very interesting. That I drove all the way to Georgia to see a Tennessee locomotive. It's rather funny if you ask me. Exit here to see the General. So let's go see it. And if you all didn't know, the Lacey Hotel, which this display is based on, that is where the General was taken. And anyway, I just thought that was interesting. We will stop and see the location of where that hotel once stood. But this is the hall of all the men that were Andrews Raiders. We have James J. Andrews. Again, that is a picture of the hotel, and that is what the federal advances were. But this was Harlem Mason, Martin Jones Hawkins, John Moorhead Scott, Philip Gerpart Shadrach, we saw his grave. James J. Andrews, we saw his grave as well. I believe we saw Alan Dorsey's, I think so. But all these were Medal of Honor recipients. And if you all didn't know, these men, as you see all these Medal of Honor symbols, these were the first Medal of Honor recipients. So again, you can thank the great locomotive chase for the reason we have the Medal of Honor. And, well, that is William Fuller, the conductor of the General. So yes, 21 men, including a few other civilians, may not seem like a lot, but all these men played a part in this locomotive chase. And this is very interesting. This is William Fuller's ticket puncher, and that's his bust. Lacey Hotel. I am looking forward to seeing this piece of Americana. Also, there is a little display diorama. Again, this is the Lacey Hotel back there. And then, of course, you see a few, well, what I'm assuming is either Confederate or Union tents. But this kind of gives you a bigger picture on what the landscape was like about 160 years ago. Now, if anyone is curious about what this 83-mile journey looked like, it starts in Big Shanty, Georgia, and goes all the way up to Ringgold, where we went to earlier today. And this further gives you an idea on what Andrews Raiders were doing. They were cutting down telecommunication lines. They were tearing up the railroads. Well, I think that is just what Kennesaw looked like from the battlefront. And this is a drawing of one of the men who was tearing down the communication lines. And this diorama right here will show you what some of the present day locations look like. The bridge that runs over the Etowah River, that was destroyed by General Sherman in 1864. But obviously you can tell that a lot of the tracks were or have been removed since then. Tunnel Hill and the old Kingston Depot, the remains of that. Okay, you guys, without further ado, let's see the General. Alrighty, it's through this tunnel. And there she is. If I could only go back in time and tell the 6-year-old me how awesome this is. This is amazing. You gotta think, no telling what this locomotive saw as it went through the Georgia countryside to stop the Confederacy. This is so awesome. Now, a few years back, it was restored back in 1963, I believe, if I understand correctly. 1963 was the centennial of the Great Locomotive Chase. And from there, really, if I'm not mistaken, in 1963, that's when it was returned back to the state of Georgia. Just look at it from standing up here. You gotta think. It ran out of coal, ran out of iron, it blew a gasket, and now almost 150 years later, she sits here. I mean, honestly, I am in awe of this steam-breathing giant. This thing is incredible. Seeing it up in person does not do it justice. Growing up, my parents would always tell me, "We'll go see the General." Well, it took me 23 years to see it, and I am not complaining. Nope, nuh-uh. Okay, maybe a little. Okay, now, that was very interesting. As I said back there, I did not realize that this museum had that much in it. At least to say, I was very impressed. I think definitely sometime in the future, we will do an individual vlog on this museum to really go into more detail, because there's just so much there. But you guys, we are going to stop at one more location. And that is the beginning of where the Great Locomotive Chase started. Alright, you guys, it was not far from this marker where the Lacey Hotel once stood. Yes, I find it very fitting, because here is point A of the General marker. And you gotta think what it was like for William Fuller, the conductor of the General, to see his locomotive going off into the mountains. Now, there is a big reason why James J. Andrews chose Big Shanty, better known as Kennesaw present day. And that is because this town did not have a communications port. They did not have any communication lines. So that gave them the upper hand to get on this locomotive and begin their raid. Very interesting. This is where it all began, along this strip of railroad tracks. And as you all can tell, there is quite a bit of holiday festivities going on here in Kennesaw. Which kind of reminds me, we will be doing other stuff like that on this channel for the holiday season. So you guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. It goes to show that y'all care and that y'all want to see more of my adventures. So you guys, love y'all very much. Vlog over.